Okay, let's talk about you were part of a monumental recording. I mean, big time. Daddy sang bass, Johnny Cash. So you
Yeah.
get a call from old JR, and he says, "Come to the studio. I want you to sing on a song." Man, tell me about that. That was big.
Yeah, it was. Actually, Carl Perkins wrote the song and had given it to us. And we said, yeah, because this is it. We want it. The next call we got was from John. He said, no, I'm going to record it. And we, oh, really? Okay. But we wound up recording it later anyway. But we were a part of that, us and the Carters. And interesting enough, a lot of people think that was June on the record. It was Jan Howard that did the Mama Sang tenor.
Okay.
So it was Jan doing that. But yeah, it was a great session, and it was a big record. And I think one of the best, and I'll say this for Carl's sake, because he penned the whole thing. It was a perfect marriage of a country song and a gospel song together.
Yeah.
It started off with a country story, but then it wound up being a gospel song. And I just love the way it fit together.
Yeah. Great song. And that thing sold millions, man. I mean, it was huge.
Yeah, it was.
You also mentioned a time or two in the book, and this really piqued my curiosity. You have songs in limbo, songs that the Statler Brothers have recorded, but the world's never heard a note of it.
Some of them they haven't. That's right. They just sort of died in the vaults. That was over in Columbia Records. We were there for 5 years, and it wasn't a happy time. I talk about the struggles in the book that we had. Yeah. And yeah, we record them, and then they would just be hanging on there somewhere. There's a few of them that we don't even have. My sons are great Statler historians, and they have a lot of the stuff that I don't have, but there's a couple I think they don't have, and I can't even remember how the songs went, so I can't even sing it for you.
Okay. Well, I tell you, and I'm going to come back to this here in a minute, but I may have to start a petition to Columbia and see if I can't get enough signatures to get enough of them to maybe put it out where we can buy them. You know, if there's a financial incentive for Columbia, maybe they'll do it.
Financial, the way you get to their heart. I would say that I would like to hear it. If you do, let me know, because I want to hear some of them.
Okay. Okay, we'll do. Okay, you recorded what I consider to be really kind of a quintessential Southern gospel song. Every day will be Sunday by and by. You've got, everybody doing their parts. You've got calls, you've got answers. It's going all over the place. You're tapping your toes, you're clapping your hands. What a great song.
Again, we did the identical Blackwood Brothers arrangement. That's how that was on the record that we had on an album when we were younger, and we did it exactly the way they did it. Well, I just love that old song.
Yeah.
We used to do it on stage a lot. We just pull it over the hat if we wanted an extra song sometime, and did it for our own enjoyment. And people loved it. Yeah.
I've played it a lot, your version a lot on the air over the last 42 years, just so you know. I loved it. Thank
you very much.
Well, let's talk about, and I was going to bring it in here and I forgot. I left it in my closet. The old Roadhog and the Saturday morning radio show. Y'all started that thing, man. And did you think it would take on a life of its own the way it did when you were flying in that plane, going to wherever it is you were going, and just yakking it up, and this was birth?
No, we were on our way to Europe, and we came up with this comedy routine, and we wrote it on the plane. When we got back home, we said, well, we'll make it a part of our next album, because the album was going to be called Country Music Then and Now, and we'd put it on the then side. And we saw it just as a funny comedy routine. And then it took off. It just, people pulled it over the album, and the Roadhog became a monster. And Mercury Records said, hey, we want a whole album. We want a comedy album from you. But we'd never considered doing a comedy album. And we had to think about that for a minute. Wait a minute, that's going to take a lot of writing, a lot of, fill up a whole album. But we said, yeah, we'll give it a shot. And then the album was great. It was a big seller also. And these characters, Roadhog and his Cadillac Cowboys, were born, and they're still hanging around. And I understand there's probably not a bus that leaves Nashville that didn't have a copy of it on there, and people still talk, especially the artists. They just love it.
Well, in the Southern gospel world, you can't get your Southern gospel card without being able to do the entire routine from top to bottom.
I know it. I know. Yeah.
And by the way, it really, it's an everyday occurrence. I get hit with a Roadhog thing from my Southern gospel buddies every day. If I'm around right? Jeff Easter and I, we do the whole routine together from top to bottom.
You know all the words. All right.
Oh yeah. It's a big deal. Now, okay. Now I'm going to cycle back around to like the songs that you said that's out there that no one's ever heard. Now you mentioned during this part of the book that there were outtakes on the Roadhog stuff that never made it. So that's the second petition I'm going to start. I want to hear the outtakes.
Well, we do have some of those, and sometimes when I see you, Les, I'll pull some things I can play for you.
Oh, please do that.
Yeah. Now Langdon's sitting here. He said it's going to cost you some money in order to hear it. But
if I got to go get a loan, I'm going to get it. Tell Langdon I'll give him his money. He just needs to cough it up when I do.
Okay, I'll tell him.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about, it's wonderful to record these great songs and have a great sound and a great band and great lyrics and sing it, it's killing it and all that. But, in the retail world, and there still is a retail world, there's no more record stores, all that stuff, it's different. Right. But there's still how you present it. And man, your all's album covers were out of the box.
Well, thank you. We put a lot of thought into album covers. It was kind of a whole nother project. Once you go up with the album and you got the music and everything, you say, now how do we want to dress this up? And it was so much fun to dress each set of songs up with a picture that would represent what was going on inside of that cover. Yeah. And we had a great time doing it. Some of them were simple. Some of them were a little more elaborate, took a little more production, but they all meant a lot to us. And we worked with some good photographers and set designers.
And even in the back too, not just the front covers, but I've got, for example, I've got the Harold Lou Phil and Don album. And then right. The back of this one, you've got the Statler Brother quiz. I mean, when I went to the record store to get this and I flipped that thing around, I bet you I studied and stared at that and read that and tried to take the quiz in that store for 30 minutes just sitting there.
Then we put it in a song, and that was really tricky.
Yeah.
To where Harold and I wrote it, and we thought, now if we write a verse of questions, will people be able to remember those questions when we write the next verse of answers?
Yeah.
So we thought, well, what the heck, we're going to try to. Plus, we put the lyrics on the back there so they could follow along if they wanted to.
Yeah. Well, that was brilliant. And your covers, even the back covers, everything was brilliant. It matched the brilliance that was inside of the cover.
You're too kind. Thank you. You're very kind. Thank you.
And I'm speaking to our world today. I mention it. I bring it up because our world today needs to have that mentality. We need to make it look like something that's interesting that people want to open up and buy and get and listen to.
Yeah. Well, in record stores, as you and I remember, you walk in and there is a lot of competition. You walk into a record, there's thousands of albums there that's waiting to be bought.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that maybe yours jumps out and has a story to tell before they actually, tear the cellophane off.
Yeah.
So that's what the picture and the jacket had to do.
Let's talk about the Holy Bible, Old and New Testament that y'all did. Now, if I remember right in the book, didn't you say it took about 8 years, maybe?
Yeah, it did.
Why did it take so long?
Well, we started talking about it. And we started picking songs, and then we started writing songs. We just outlined in the Bible what we wanted the stories we wanted to tell through the Old Testament, leading up to Christ, and then the stories that we wanted to tell in the New Testament, in His life. And we thought, well, we'll write these songs. So in doing all of our concerts and television and other albums, we would have to work this in when we could, and we would work in the songs. And as we wrote them, then when we were in Nashville, we had enough of time left over to a session, we'd say, well, let's record one of our gospel songs. And so we do that, put it in a can, waiting for this to come to, and all that took over a period of time, about 8 years. And then we got more involved, and we wrote a lot of dialogue for it to bring the songs together, to weave them together.
Yeah, it was more than just the songs themselves. You had vocal intros.
We did
to each
for every song. Mm-hmm.
It was great. It all pieced together, and by the time you were through, man, you were, as the first song in the Old Testament that you said in the beginning, and then the last song was "The King is Coming," and so you did everything in between. Yeah,
you know what I loved about that too. Last week, "The King is Coming" is how we ended the Old Testament, which of course is introducing the New Testament. But then we got to the New Testament, we said, "Oh, that's the way to end the New Testament, also, because he's coming again." Yeah, and so we used that song to end both albums. Yeah.
I hosted a Southern Gospel radio show in Chicago, Illinois, of all places, the Southern Gospel Mecca of the world, I guess, from 1978, from 1978 to 1984, and I ended every single show for those 6 years with your version of "The King is Coming."
Is that right? Well, how nice. Yeah. That's terrific.
Powerful. It's good.
It's a great song. Just a beautiful song.
Bill and Gloria did pretty good with that one, didn't they?
They did great with that one. Yeah.
How about a personal favorite on either of those albums? Give me a personal favorite.
Personal favorite on the albums. I'm going to have to say a song that I wrote would be "The Brave Apostles 12," because I put a lot of work into that, whereas I named all the apostles and what have you. And you might say, well, that's not a big deal. But if you look in the Bible, they're not exactly listed out clearly. It takes a lot of comparison when you get, I think, like 4 different writers wrote their names, but they didn't always use the same names. Sometimes they would use first name or second name. A lot of them had 2, you know. So you'd have to put it together, and it took a little bit of work to decide which one you're going to use.